Yeah, Ashe and Grand Rising to you all, my beautiful people, my highly enriched melanin people, you the Earth's original and organic humans, also known as my fellow Africans, or most commonly known as my fellow Africans. Yes, it is I, the Mystic Philosopher, and yes, it is evident that I am still here with you on this side of reality. And welcome back to the Mystic P is talking again, also known as On the 15 with the Mystic Philosopher. Now, looking back, I realized that this is actually episode 8, but more on that at another time. In my last talk, which by accurate accounting and for your information, I now realize was episode number 7 and not number 3 as therein stated. You might remember that I spent some time answering the question, is stress natural or is it unnatural? And my answer to that was that from the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, the thing called stress is both natural and unnatural. I also spent some time explaining from my perspective why stress, like anything and everything else that we can or that we may think of, is dual in nature. And I also spent some time explaining what I meant by it being, its stress being natural, and what I also meant by it being unnatural. And to add some weight to my point, I even went as far as to borrow a quote from the 7 Hermetic principles as recorded in the book called The Kabbalion, namely the principle of polarity. And I quote, just to remind you, everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. Unquote. We'll be getting again into that deeper and deeper as we go into this subject matter. I also gave at least one practical example of natural stress, namely gravity, versus unnatural stress, unnatural stress, which I simply told you is man-made, or that it may be described as being man-made, or more correctly, may be best described as being humankind-made, etc. Again, we'll talk about that in the future. I also think that from all of my previous talks, I have thus far answered the following 2 very important questions. 1, do we all have to experience and live with stress? And the answer that I gave you is that from my perspective, yes. And number 2, can we get rid of stress completely out of our lives? And again, the answer that I gave you from my perspective is no. And no doubt by now some of you, my listeners, might be asking questions such as, why do I need to know all this? Or why all the details? Who do you think you are to be coming and lecture me on stress, etc., etc.? And to answer these and some of the other possible questions that some of you might be asking, let me again borrow another quote from one of my favorite books, this time called The Art of War, by the late Chinese general, military strategist, writer and philosopher called Sun Tzu. And I quote, he said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb to every battle. Unquote. Well, from the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, if you perceive this thing called stress to be your enemy, an enemy or something or someone that is depriving you of your birthright, and your birthright, by your birthright I mean your true happiness, your joy, your peace of mind, and destroying you, etc., then it only makes good and rational sense that you at the very least tried and know all that you can know about it being in stress, as well as that you try and know all that there is to know about about yourself. And by doing so, you need not fear the outcome of 100 battles, or if you prefer, the outcome of 100 wars with stress, 100 challenges with stress. Again, I quote, sorry, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Unquote. Second, if you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. Now, if you only know about, unquote, that is, now if you only know about yourself and very little or nothing about your enemy, which in this case is stress, then every time you win a battle with stress, you lose one to it as well. You lose one to another of its agents, another of stress agents. For example, you will be hooked on drugs, hooked on alcohol, hooked on sex, hooked on food, hooked on lies, hooked on working your job, hooked on shopping, hooked on abuse. You'll be hooked on popping pills, hooked on shrinks and palm readers. You'll be hooked on seeing your favorite health care and mental health professional. You name it, or you name them, and you will be hooked on it or hooked on them for the rest of your life. Finally, if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Unquote. It means that you will forever be a permanent victim of stress. It means that you are doomed. It means that your life will be one of permanent misery. It means that you are just like the chaff that is being blown and tossed to and fro by the wind of life. It means that you are and will continue to be unstable in all your ways. Now, with that said, I hope that you now have a better understanding, inner standing and outer standing, as to why I, the Mystic Philosopher, am so meticulous in dealing with this subject. And I hereby invite you to please join me if or when next I am talking again, possibly episode 9, where and when I will be talking and focusing on stress on the mind. Or to be more correct, or more correctly, I will be talking about the impact that this thing called stress has on the thing that we called the mind. So stay tuned. In the meantime and between time, let me play a little something as customary for you to hopefully help, at least for a moment, distract your mind from some or from any possible or any potential stress or stresses that you might be currently experiencing, and also to help some of you start your day right, and possible help to relieve any possible unnatural stress or stresses that you will encounter today, and encounter them you will. The song is an old classic, especially for us old timer. It is called Stand By Me by Benny King. When the night is come and the land is dark and the moon is the only like you see, yeah. I won't cry, I won't cry, no, 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 no. I won't be afraid, just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, darling, won't you stand by me? Oh, yeah. And if the sky that we look upon to just stumble and fall, and the mountain should crumble to the sea, yeah, no, I won't be afraid. No, 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 I won't be afraid, just as long as you stand by me. Oh, yeah, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, darling, won't you stand by me? Stand by me. Wish we could all stand by each other. Make the journey in this life far much easier, and the stresses and the challenges more easy to bear. Yes. Let us remember, my brethren, that yesterday is history. It too is dead and gone, and no more to come back. Tomorrow is a mystery. It too may never come, but today is a gift, which is why we call it the present day, the present moment, the present time. And so I'm hereby imploring you to live for today and hope for tomorrow. I am the Mystic Philosopher. Thanks for watching and listening. Ashe, 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 I say.